the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donny Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on your home of the St. Louis Blues, 101 ESPN.
It is the Last Minute Blues podcast. Donny Fandango joined in the Jeff Burton studio by Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. We've also got our homeboy Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic sitting diagonally from me. Gentlemen, I love hockey so much, and at least for me, hockey is starting to become a year-round situation.
Oh, yeah.
It's starting to fill the time in the summer, and I love every bit of it. And so last night, the NHL Draft Lottery takes place. And as I'm trying to explain to my daughter and to Mary what I'm about to watch and what I'm so excited to watch, they looked at me like I was about to watch like a kid's show. And then when they come out and there's the machine and the balls are they're just cackling. They just think that this is the most hilarious thing of all time. But I tried to get Dexter into it by saying if the Blues got the first or the second pick, you would get $20. And I had him get him. I had him tearing there until, but it was really, it was really an exciting thing. Obviously, the Blues with having two potential selections there, but the way that it all went down, I think, is completely fascinating. I almost kind of don't know where to start, but we'll start here with the hometown Blues. 11 and 15 is where they will be picking in the first round if everything stays the way that it is. They don't make a trade. So I want to just kind of get your initial thoughts, guys, on that 11 and 15, and then
well, let me give you my perspective last night, because my daughters were at dance. They were leaving dance right at 6:00, and I'm like, "Let's get in the car. Come on. Daddy's got to watch." I told them I needed to watch hockey. And they were like, okay. And so they got in the car, and, everybody's screaming they want McDonald's. And I'm like, baby, I need to listen to hockey. It's like, and so I turn it on, and they're like, Daddy, that's not hockey. Those are balls. And I'm like, you're right, but this is important. But you're listening to it while you're driving with everyone screaming in the back seat. I don't want to start with the Blues. I want to start with what everybody is probably going to get frustrated with. The draft once again is rigged. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this draft is rigged. You cannot tell me otherwise.
Okay, well, can I legitimately ask this question since we're here? All right, obviously you guys know I'm a big NFL fan, okay? I'm a huge NFL fan. If the NFL did their draft the way that the NHL does, I would lose my friggin' mind every single year. And I think that it's cool, and I love the show, and I don't mean to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, but I don't love it. I don't love it today for Vancouver. I don't give a crap about the Canucks in any way, shape, or form. But what an abysmal...
Well, how about Calgary? How about Calgary that finished with the second or third worst record, and they're picking 6th overall?
Yeah, I just, guys, I in watching this last night and then thinking about it after the fact, I just don't know that I love the lottery in general for this.
Well, and so let me argue with myself, because there's no real way to do it to make it not look rigged, right? Because I think my reaction is man, just go to NHL mock draft, hit the sim button, and then just put the computer screen up there so everyone can see it. They'd call that rigged. But just the entire narrative of what these last few days were. And I was asked yesterday on BK and Ferrario, if the draft is rigged, Alex, who wins it? And I said, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because everything, the Chris Johnston article yesterday with Austin Matthews not being sure if he's going to be here, the new general manager being called a con artist, and then Toronto's odds dipped all the way down to 4% when the third ball popped up. And then all of a sudden, oh, look, they won it. Everything's fine in Toronto. I just call it rigged.
Yeah, listen, so there's a million things on this earth that we could sit here and say, yeah, no doubt that is rigged. And this is obviously one that gets attention every single year with the way things turn out. Bedard going to Chicago, so on and so forth. By the way, McDavid did go to Edmonton. So my only thing is, and I don't disagree with you, I'm saying, how could they do it where that wouldn't be the perception?
That's the hard part.
And I know we've been talking about this for years, but how are they rigging it? Are some of these balls that are popping up weighing more than some of the other balls? Or, like how is this
They're
happening?
weighted balls, JR. They put a little lead in the numbers for Toronto so that they pop up first.
Yeah.
That was way too conspiracy, Alex. I'm sorry.
You were convinced
I know
by
that
it.
was way too conspiracy, Alex, on it. Sorry.
So there's so many combinations. There's so many things, but you're right. Like it does wind up where, okay, where do you want Gavin McKenna to play? We want him to play in Toronto. We don't play in Vancouver. I was saying this earlier that my son goes, I don't get why you're saying that. Why do you say that they want him to play in Toronto? I say, hey, you know who Mike Trout is? He said, yeah. I go, you watch him play? He goes, no. I go, why? He goes, because he plays in Anaheim. And I'm like, the games are on at 9:00 at night, right?
Yep.
And I said, so Gavin McKenna's playing instead of 6 p.m. Central, it's going to be 9 p.m. Central.
Yep.
So there is an incentive, I think, for the league to have its best players in those types of cities, and especially a market like Toronto. I just don't know how they pull off the rig.
I got one more idea.
Yep.
Let's put them all on big posters. Then I promise we're going to talk Blues. I knew we were going to get into this because I was bringing it up.
He goes, I knew we were going to get it. Yeah, you brought it up.
I'm bringing it up. It's rigged.
Yeah, you brought it up.
It's been rigged for 5 years.
I knew we were going to talk about watermelons. Yeah, I brought it up.
They bring all of the logos on a poster board, and then you just go old school. You throw them in the air, and then let them all shuffle up and fall down, and then Bettman goes over and picks one up. So then you see it live on air. The cards are being thrown in the air, and then wherever they land, that's the one you pick up.
Well, listen, and we will talk about the Blues here in a second. But if you are watching this and you don't know what we're talking about as far as Toronto goes and how, I mean, legitimately from Sunday when the move was announced, who would be their new general manager, and I guess Matt Sundin is sort of the president of hockey ops.
Let's just call him the
advisor. Yeah,
let's call him the protective shield for the general manager that nobody likes.
Yeah.
They put Sundin on the screen last night. Send him instead of Shock.
I wonder why all the other general managers were there, and then they had Sundin.
Yeah. But in reading about this new general manager of the Leafs and reading these articles in The Athletic, I am so shocked that he is the actual general manager of one of the biggest teams in sports, not just in hockey, in sports. This guy, this general manager, and again, the name is Chaka, Chaka, okay? So not only did he try to do an end around with draft prospects and have the draft prospects meet the team earlier than the other teams, which is an absolute massive no-no. But while he had a job, he was trying to get another job with another organization. Like this dude... the thing that I kept thinking about in reading about him is what other general manager is going to want to do business with this guy in the first place. Now, I know at the end of the day you have to, but aren't a lot of deals done because you have a relationship with somebody in the other city, on the other team? Who the hell is going to want to do anything with this
And then
guy?
when asked about it in the press conference the other day, he said, well, things were hard in Arizona.
Things were hard in Arizona.
Right. So it just, to me, the fact that he gets that gig and the media goes crazy. Monday, there is a huge press conference. A gentleman, with a writer in the room.
Steve Simmons.
What did he call him?
He called him a con artist and a...
Yeah, he said that people he spoke
Oh, yeah,
to
that's true. Yeah, he didn't call them.
It called him just all of these things while the general manager is in the room and the guy's family is in the room on top of it. Everything about this, it was just, Toronto was on fire. And then they get the number one pick last night. It was the most insane 48 hours as a Leaf fan I can even possibly imagine.
I didn't understand the hiring of him because it's not like he was making the Arizona Coyotes this world beater. They were talking about some of the draft picks that he had. One of the first round picks that they had, they took P.O. Joseph. Another one, they took Victor Soderstrom, Barrett Hayton. He hasn't had a track record of success. So I was very blown away that that was the decision that they went with, but it sounds like everyone in Toronto wanted an analytical background. Like that's what they wanted. And they get the analytics, and then they get the former player. And the former player is a legend in Toronto, Matt Sundin, that people love no matter what. So that's why I joked, but it is kind of serious. Like, it's a protective shield to where it's like, hey, this is the guy that's making the decisions, but Matt Sundin is also there helping him. And that's why this does not bode well. And it makes a lot of sense to me that this happened. And then the next day, a story came out with Austin Matthews being like, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be back.
Yeah, this will keep Austin. And, you know, if he's on a line with the top pick and got some other choices there. Yeah, guys, I got a conspiracy theory. I think that they bring in Jacob because they know he won't last more than 3 years. Then you bring in Doug Armstrong in 3 years.
When I was done, reading all of the stuff in The Athletic, I thought to myself, Armstrong is there in 18 to 24 months from now.
Got 2 conspiracy theories in the first segment of this podcast.
But buddy, I don't think it's a conspiracy
No, I don't
theory.
either.
Like, I feel as though that even though I don't have a background in analytics, that I could friggin' do as good of a job as that guy, and I've never been trying to go for another job while I already have a job or do anything like break rule. It is bananas to me that he gets the job in Toronto of all places.
Hey, you're not the only one that's shocked. His dad's shocked. His mom's shocked. His
sister who works at ESPN is shocked.
The whole family's shocked.
But I do think that this very much is just perfect timing for Doug Armstrong to eventually take over there.
Yeah, and obviously that's, could be a couple of years down the road. And obviously Keith Pelly thinks that, they've made a great hire. And maybe they have. Like, who do we, we don't know. Like, in 2 years, it could turn. Alex says, no, this is going to go bad. and you're probably right. All I'm saying is, like, I'm joking in terms of, hey, this guy's going to fail and they're going to bring somebody else in a couple of years.
If I am a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and every time I see Keith Pelly get behind a microphone,
you want to boo?
I want to boo. I want to forget that that's my favorite team. I don't know who there is putting that guy in front of a microphone, but they need to get fired, and then they need to make sure that dude is behind the microphone as little as humanly possible. Like, just stop.
All of this is why the Maple Leafs won the draft lottery last night.
It just seems like a mess, like a gigantic mess. All right.
People are talking about the league today, and they would not have been if it had been Columbus or St. Louis that win it, right?
You're right.
Nobody's talking if Seattle wins it or Calgary wins it. The teams that you're talking about are if the Toronto Maple Leafs win the NFL Draft Lottery or NHL Draft Lottery.
All right, so the Blues end up staying pat, essentially. They're going to be drafting 11 and 15. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I have gotten questions about already from my son, from my dentist, was will the Blues draft all 3 of these players in the first round, or will they try to package and move up? And here is my question. I love the idea of them moving up, okay? But if you are in that 2 spot and you can take Ivar Stenberg, why would you want to make a trade with the Blues? And I know that number 2 is San Jose, and we talked about this a little bit before, but why would San Jose even want to do that in the first place?
Yeah, first of all, I'm picturing you at the dentist this morning, and your dentist goes, you got a wisdom tooth here, but hey, by the way, do you think the Blues are trade?
The dentist always asks that, too, in the middle of them working.
While you're talking.
Who do you think the Blues are going to draft?
I am positive when I go and see Dr. Maxwell that his staff, when they see me come in, they roll their eyes hard because they know that it is going to be him and I chopping it up about the Blues and the Cardinals and football. And like, it's just like we build in the time during the appointments or what have you. But I mean, it's a really, man, it's a great point. It's a great thought. I would love to have the Stenbergs here together. It sounds like an amazing story, but reality, boys.
So you asked the question, and this is my thought, because the moment that you see what the finalized order is, as a Blues fan, you start looking at it and be like, okay, who realistically could trade out of their spots? I think the Rangers are one of them because the Rangers, I don't think, have an appetite to go into a full-blown rebuild. So if they could get better, would they trade that 5th overall pick for that player? And then the Seattle Kraken, who also need to win soon because they got an NBA team coming to Seattle shortly. So you need to make yourself interesting. So I'm like, okay, you got 5 and 7. But then I saw, and I think it's Curtis Pachelka that tweeted out Mike Greer's comment of like, shocked that they got the lottery with the 2nd overall pick. And that obviously, there's an appetite to make the trade of the pick if the trade is appealing to them. And I believe they had that same statement last year when they had the 2nd overall pick, and they eventually took that Michael Misa. Why would San Jose want to trade that pick? The only reason why is if they're getting something that makes them better now and for the future, rather than something that makes them better in the future. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if Ivar Stenberg's a certainty that they draft him. Like a lot of people speculate that they could draft a defenseman because they need a franchise-altering defenseman to play on their back end. Mm-hmm. So if I'm San Jose, and The Athletic put this piece together today of the why would they trade the pick, and they said, well, you got one more year on a rookie entry-level contract for Celebrini before his cap goes through the roof. So if you're trying to not win a cup, but make yourself more appealing for a cup now. And also the Pacific Division is wide open if people haven't watched what the Anaheim Ducks have done and Vegas is doing in Colorado, Minnesota. So like if I'm Mike Greer and somebody has something that can make my team better right now and be with my Celebrinis and Will Smiths and all these guys for the next 3 to 5 years, well, then I'm going to make that deal. But it's going to have to be something that's appealing. And so I couldn't help myself think it's like, man, it makes the most sense in the world for the Blues to be ultra aggressive to go and get that 2nd overall pick because Stenberg would be the one that you're going to pick. I don't know if San Jose is even going to select Stenberg. Mm-hmm. If they want defensemen, it seems like there's a lot of defensemen that they could still get at the 11th overall pick. Right? Yeah. And so this is a 5 or 6 defenseman deep draft in terms of Scott Wheeler's tier 2. So I look at it and say, does San Jose want to trade it? Probably not, but you're going to have to make it worth their while. And I do think the Blues have pieces with 2 picks in the top 15, with a lot of prospects, and with some NHL players that maybe have fallen out of grace in St. Louis, whether it's Kyrou and whatnot. I do think there could be a deal made, but you're going to have to make sure it's a really good one for Mike Greer.
This one just makes too much sense. It does. And maybe that's looking at it through the Blues glasses. But San Jose is a team that's had a lot of high picks lately. As we know, they've got a couple top 6 players out of recent drafts. One, Celebrini, who's an all-world player. And could Stenberg help them? For sure he could, but they do need that defenseman. Now, if they drop to 11, they're not going to get one of the top 2 defensemen, like a Reed. But they're still going to get a good player. I don't have the table in front of me that the Blues use and all NHL teams use. Is a 11 and a 15 worth of 2? Can you jump up? Would San Jose be interested in that? I think more along the lines of what Alex is saying is get an NHL ready player, a proven player, whether it's Kyrou or somebody, and maybe one of those picks or some sort of package like that can help San Jose a little bit more now, and it gets the Blues another building block for their future.
So here's the part that I've been trying to come up with, and I try and do this realistically and not like a fan trade, but I look at their team. Do they want more help offensively? Maybe, but I don't think they need it. They're good in the center spots. They're good in their top 6 wings. Right. They're talking depth pieces. They need help on defense, and they need help in goaltending. Now, they have that young Oskarov, so that's the guy of the future, but maybe they felt like he wasn't ready for the workload that he took on this year. So would a deal of 11, Colorado's pick, Colton Parayko, and Jordan Binnington get that done? I don't think so. If I'm San Jose, I look at this and say, so I'm getting an older defenseman. Mm-hmm. I'm getting a goaltender that's older.
And coming off a bad year.
It could help me win right away, but coming off of a bad year, and he's a free agent after this season, mm-hmm. and I'm getting 11 in the later draft pick. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense if I'm San Jose, but it's the most NHL ready that you have on your team. And that's the hard part for the Blues. They either got the younger guys that San Jose may not want, guys that the Blues don't have any appetite to trade away, like a Broberg, or the older ones that teams may look at and be like, I don't know about this. I still think Colton Parayko's got a good 4 to 5 years of elite play in him. So maybe that's San Jose, but I'm trying to do it like you, Jared, where it's you're trying to do it without the blue glasses, but you look at it And as much as people want to say, well, just give them Kyrou. I don't know if they need Kyrou.
Yeah.
They need defense and goaltending help. So do you want to trade Jiricek? Do you want to trade Hofer? Those are the questions you got to ask if you really want number 2.
I'm trying. I feel like this is a deal that would have to hurt a little bit for the Blues.
Yeah.
Like we would have to be moving a piece that that's going to sting. You mentioned Jake Neighbors earlier in the office.
Yeah.
And as much as I absolutely love Jake Neighbors, I feel like it's going to have to be some kind of package like that where, again, we're losing somebody that we go, damn it, but we are getting this number 2 pick.
And I don't do that. And that's a fair point made by you. I just don't do that. I'm not trading Jake Neighbors. And I realize that I've kind of, grown an attachment to him in terms of learning more about him and knowing who he is. But
you and me both, brother.
But just being within that locker room and hearing what guys and what the team says about him and what the management believes in him. And so you're right. Yeah, and I know you're not,
And I don't mean him necessarily specifically, but just somebody like that where it's going to sting.
I don't think you can get the number 2 overall pick without it hurting somehow. You can't just pass off your quote unquote trash, like the old Camo X trade back in the day. Trade your
first time caller, long time listener. I'd like to trade my 7th overall pick for Gavin McKenna, please.
But I do think that the Blues have some players that are not trash, that are still very good NHL players who can help a team that's in a San Jose position where they've got a ton going for them in the future. But could they use a veteran here and a veteran here that would help them, finish in the wild card or in the Pacific? Shoot, you could finish first.
Yeah, right? You could finish first in the Pacific if you're them.
Finish first, and the Blues, I think, would be willing to part with those players. Now it comes down to what type of package, how many players are you talking, and also, as much as we like Ivar Stenberg, I think we need to be careful about, coming up with this mega package to trade for a guy who could be a really good player, but not a superstar in the NHL. And, if you're able to move some players that really aren't part of your future here in St. Louis, whether it's Binnington or whether it's, Parayko's going to be gone in a couple of years, if there's an ability to do that, then you do it. But I don't think you need to be giving up a Neighbors or somebody else who's for sure a part of this future to get Stenberg.
Well, and that's where I agree with you too, because I saw a lot of frustrated fans last night that saw the results of the lottery and they were like, this is why it sucked how the Blues ended the season. And man, I looked at it so differently. Like, this draft, in my opinion, doesn't have a Celebrini, a Connor McDavid, a Sidney Crosby. Like, it does not have a generational player. It's got a Slavkovsky. It's got a Connor Bedard, to where, like, it's a really, really good player, but I don't think it automatically makes you a winner because this guy's looking like a Hall of Famer. So, like, you wanted a top 2 pick. That's great. Look who picked first and second, though. Toronto, who wasn't even the worst team in the NHL, San Jose, who had the same amount of points as you did. Like, you had the same odds as San Jose to get that 2nd overall pick, and San Jose got it. The teams that finished the worst are picking 3rd, 4th, and 6th in this draft. So, like, you can get upset all you want. And this draft, to me, isn't very different from either the 1st overall pick, however you view Gavin McKenna, and then from 2 to 13, it's a lot of guys who have high ceilings, but kind of fall somewhere in the middle where they're really good players and maybe they could be stars. This isn't like you needed to get a top 5 pick to get a superstar. This is you're going to get a really good player wherever you pick in this one. So, man, I would much rather this team have finished the season the way that they did, where Snuggerud gets some confidence, Holloway gets some confidence, Hofer and Broberg, and pick 11th, which I know isn't great, then finish the 2nd worst team in the NHL and fall 4 spots in the draft and have to select 6th.
100%. And that's why we talk about that towards the latter part of the season. And, oh, by the way, down goes Brown from The Athletic. He sent me a message last night and he said, hey, I do this piece where, hey, maybe a game or 2 here and there this season change the outcome of the standings and thus the odds for where you selected in the draft lottery. And he goes, can you give me 1 or 2 with the Blues? And I said, well, San Jose jumped. The Blues played San Jose 3 times in March. The Blues won 2 of them in overtime, with Dylan Holloway scoring one of the OT winners with 3 seconds to go. And that's what it could come down to. Nobody's going to sit down and do the math. Oh, you win that game, you get by. But that's what it comes down to.
Do you guys think that there is a good chance that they just draft 11, 15 and wherever Colorado?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't. I don't think maybe they don't get 2. I think you're probably selecting 1 or 2 times in the draft. But
in the first round.
In the first round. Yeah. My gut tells me that they're going to make some type of move, whether to try and go up or trade pieces away to try and help their roster sooner rather than later. And I forget who mentioned it in the piece on The Athletic, but they said they could do like what Montreal just did, to where they had 2 picks in the top half of the draft and they traded those for Noah Dobson.
Yeah.
So I think that is a much more likely scenario if that player becomes available for the Blues.
If that player that they trade for can fit that age range.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, not a 31-year-old who can come in and score some goals next year. But
that's where the Brady Tkachuk, does he get traded? The Jason Robertson, does he get traded? Does another team look at their player and say, we need to make moves? Matty Beniers is somebody I brought up with Seattle. Yeah. Buffalo with one of their defensemen, whether it's Power or Byram.
Yeah.
Those are the pieces that I look at and be like, the Blues could look at this and say, 11 and 15 are great, but they're not going to help us for 2 to 3 years, to where let's go get a guy that goes onto our roster on opening night and makes us a better team. That's where I can see them making some type of move.
All right, let's do this. Let's come back. Let's take our first break of the Last Minute Blues podcast. We'll come back. We'll talk Dylan Holloway. We'll take some emails. We got a bunch more of the Last Minute Blues podcast coming your way next. We're back for the second segment of the Last Minute Blues podcast. So I'm not sure if this was a coincidence or not. I really hope that it wasn't. But the day after the Edmonton Oilers are eliminated from the playoffs, the Blues announce a 5-year contract extension for Dylan Holloway.
Did he say, I hope
I said I hope
There's
it
no
wasn't.
way he hoped.
Come on, Donnie. You hope it was.
No, I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
I hope it was.
You said it wasn't, and I'm like, come on, Donnie. We were all hoping it was.
Oh, no. That is, oh God.
I think this deal was probably done, and Doug's like, Dylan, we're going to hold off on this.
Let's see what
happens with Edmonton. When they get bounced by Anaheim, we're going to make sure that
I got an idea. And he tells Dylan, and he goes, yeah.
Dylan's like, oh, baby.
Sounds good.
So Dylan Holloway gets a 5-year deal worth $38.75 million. So the AAV on this guy is 7.75. And the thing that I thought from the moment that I saw it is that if this young man stays healthy, this deal is going to be a mother effing steal. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get.
That's the title of this podcast.
But legitimately, he's going to be under 8. I mean, this is a guy that is an absolute game changer when he's healthy. To me, it's another tremendous job of contract negotiation or whatever the heck it is that the Blues do to get this potential star player under a deal, and a really good one.
Yeah, I was surprised that it was under 8. I know people talk about, hey, you should know that because Robert Thomason, he's 8.125. I get that, and teams do have ceilings, and their top guy is considered the ceiling. However, players want other players to eclipse that, so that when they're ready for their next deal in 3 or 4 years, it's going to be even higher.
Well, and also it's crazy to think that you can run a team in this day and age and have guys under $8 million as a cap.
Yeah, especially with
you
the cap.
With this cap going up, there's no way that's possible.
But all that said, and the one thing that people have to understand is, when we've been talking about 8 million, 9 million, 10 million, that number changes based on the term, the years. So if he gets an 8-year contract, it's going to be more than 7.75 million AAV, but he got a 5-year deal. I talked to Dylan Holloway a couple days ago, and he said that he likes the structure of this deal for a couple reasons. He did not want a 1 or 2 year deal like me and some others were speculating. Perhaps this is going to be a bridge deal because Doug Armstrong wants to see him healthy. He said, listen, I wanted to lay some roots here in St. Louis. I love it. 5-year deal is perfect. A situation where he's got paid now, right? 38 point something million. So he's set for life, you hope, unless he goes to the mall with my daughter. And then he gets another kick at the can when he's like 29 years old, right? And so it's a perfect situation for the Blues. The one thing I asked him about too, Donnie, I was telling you this earlier, is can he stay healthy? That's one thing that Doug was talking about. And he said, listen, I don't want to make excuses, but I really do feel like my injuries have been somewhat fluky with the oblique, the torn oblique.
Which was off of a harmless hit.
And the doctors told him, that's just 1 in a million there. And then with the practice injury where he collides with Buchnevich, or awkward, running into each other, and he has the high ankle sprain. But if Dylan Holloway showed down the stretch something. Wow. Like, that's the type of player he can be. And the last thing I'll throw in there from that interview, I know he's talked about this a little bit, but I said, Dylan, when you came from Edmonton, I had a scout tell me could be a third line player for a lot of years to come. You've obviously shown that you're a top line player. He said, I want to be a star. So if you're talking about a star in the league in 3 to 4 years, making $7.7 million, with the way he plays too, like, this is a really good deal for both sides.
Well, and let's just remember too, on the injury front, as much as those 2 injuries kept him out for some time, he's also a guy that will battle through a lot, because remember, he took that puck off of his neck and he collapsed on the bench.
I forgot about that.
He finished his shift before
what was the quote after that, remember?
He said something about, I couldn't let that puck get out of sorry. I had to make sure that the puck got out of the zone. Like, he stuck with the shift after the puck hit him in the neck, collapsed on the bench, and then was speaking to the media the next day and then in the next game.
Yeah.
So, like, this isn't a guy that gets an injury.
Let the puck get out.
Yeah, couldn't let the puck get by me or something like that. But this is a guy that, like, he doesn't get a bump and then says, I can't go anymore. Like, he'll battle through what he needs to. It's an oblique tear off the bone and a sprained ankle. So, like, I don't know, like, as much as you want him to be healthy, because even before the Blues, he had injury issues with Edmonton, whether it was the AHL or the NHL. But, like, I looked at that and you set it all aside, because it's like, okay, I got 5 years of this guy, and unless something crazy happens, we're talking about an injury that'll keep him out for a week here or there, other than the oblique one. But you also saw what he looks like when he comes back from his injury, because I thought the more telling thing was when he came back from that sprained ankle, one, he tried to rush himself back, which tells you how much he wants to get on the ice. Yeah. But 2, when he was fully healthy, he was one of the best players in the National Hockey League. That's who you have. And if he's got the mindset of, like, I want to be a star, you got a guy that wants to be a star, that has the talent and the skill to be a star for $7.75 million through his prime years. So, I mean, I looked at that and said, this was the deal that made the most sense for the Blues. You hope no other injuries happen and he's just not an injury-prone player, because if he's a healthy guy that can play 82 games, that's a guy that could put up 80 to 90 points, and he's making less than $8 million for 5 years.
And that was going to be my next question, is realistically, for Dylan Holloway, stays healthy for a year, you think he's an 80, 90 point guy?
I think so. I made this reference, and I think we did it on the podcast, but I did it on the Blues broadcast towards the end of the season. And I looked at Montreal's top line of Slafkovsky, Caulfield, and Suzuki. They had played together for 3 straight seasons, and if you look at the trajectory of their line, the first year that they played together, pretty much the entire season, they were a really good line. The second season, they got even better, and then this past season, 100 points for Suzuki, 50 goals for Caulfield. Slafkovsky was an 80-point player. And I look at that, and I said, same age frame as the Holloway, Thomas, Snuggerud. I think the Blues, if they all can stay healthy, I think that line has the potential to be what that Montreal line is. I think Thomas is a 100-point player. I don't know if Snuggerud can score 50, but I think Snuggerud can score 40, and I think Dylan Holloway is a guy that could put up 80 to 90 points.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Thomas has to stay.
If
that's what you want. And secondly, and this, I'll qualify this in a second, the line has to play together. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't have a situation where the line was so successful this year, and then they start them out next year, and then a month and a half into the season, it's just not working. Yes. And Jim Montgomery is forced to break them up, because we've seen what it can do. Yep. But they need time together. But in order, this isn't on Montgomery. I know he juggles the lines a lot, but you have to earn it, and you have to keep producing. And so if this line can, follow in the footsteps of what that Montreal line did and continue to progress, you continue to earn more time together, then you get the results, then he's not going to break you.
And that's the only way that Montreal was doing it. 3 straight seasons, that was the primary line that rarely, less than 100 minutes total in an 82-game season played with other guys. Wow. It was those 3 that played together pretty much from start to finish. And I'm with JR. Like, as much as Jim Montgomery wants to juggle the lines, you can't with that line. It's on the depth to go out there and create more secondary scoring option. Because if Kyrou and Buchnevich and Dvorsky and Carbonneau and Stenberg and all these other guys aren't generating offense, well, then they're going to have to break up that line. But, man, you need to build it so that line can stay together from start to finish.
And isn't Dylan Holloway going to the World Championships?
Yeah, he did say that yesterday on the Fast Lane. And so he and Robert Thomas, and then what do you got? Sundqvist, Sweden,
and then Pius Suter.
Pius Suter, Swiss. So.
I wonder if there's any more that goes, and we haven't heard any. Like, I wondered if Snuggerud would go. Maybe not, because the injury that he had and the longer season healthy.
Yeah.
I wondered if Hofer or Bennington probably not because of the Olympics, but I wondered if Hofer may go just to get a little bit more playing time. So, like, I'll be curious to see what the final numbers are in terms of guys that are going to go and play in that tournament.
We should know. I mean, because guys are taking off in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
So.
All right. And then also, too, this was something that we had spoken of a little bit beforehand, but we've got a couple of players that look to be joining the Springfield Thunderbirds for their playoff run as well. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. So Jiricek is going to be headed to the Thunderbirds, and as well as Justin Carbonneau, whose team was just eliminated yesterday in the finals, I believe, or the...
Yeah, he
the
sent
conference
them to
finals.
that Game 7, right? With that goal.
With 0.3 seconds off of a face-off dot.
Face-off.
So they lost in Game 7. But yeah, so both are going to join the Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds won last night against Providence.
In overtime.
So they're up 2-1 in the series. One more win, they'll advance to the next round. Steve Ott, I don't know if people have seen the video yet. Steve Ott has got those guys locked in, which is just fun to see. That dude is going to be...
Donny smile.
I know.
Dude, well, I smile because I absolutely love that guy, but also in my heart, I get a little sad because, dude,
he's going to be a head coach.
He's going to be a head coach. We're going to lose him, man. But
my hope, because you're going to lose him at some point. My hope is you get one more year of Steve Ott with the Thunderbirds, and it's just because, man, if you could get another year, if you could just get one more year of him working with all of these guys, it would pay off in insurmountable amount of, like, that is what you want as a minor league team. But Carbonneau, Jiricek are going to join them, and it's up to Steve Ott if he's going to play them. I'll be fascinated to see. But man, how big is that going to be for those two guys to get their first taste of pro hockey in playoff form with Steve Ott?
Like, what are realistic expectations for those guys in this situation? I mean, you say, like, they might not even play. Is it more to just give them a taste of, like, hey, boys, you are knocking on the door. Here's what it's like in the AHL. You know, what's the point of doing that?
Get them in that environment, but that's not to say they won't play. They might be in the lineup.
They threw Colin Ralph right into it with the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, so that's got to be a little bit of an awkward situation because you've got these guys who have really turned their season around and bought into Steve Ott, and Steve Ott's been real truthful and honest with them, and now all of a sudden here comes helicoptering in some recent first-round draft picks to, go into this playoff lineup. But hey, listen, if you're the organization, this is what you got to do, and you got to get these players in there. But man, you guys nailed it. Like Steve Ott, what he's done, no disregard to the previous coach, Connor Walchuk, but they're not in this situation. If they don't make that coaching change and put Steve Ott in there, they rally the second half of the season and get into these playoffs. And what an experience for these guys, the way they've gotten involved in this postseason. And to rally from that 8-1 loss in Game 1 against Charlotte in the first round series to now be in the position they are and adding guys who are getting knocked out of their junior hockey playoffs, this is just a great situation.
The one thing I'll tell people, like, why it matters is, like, I look at the Washington Capitals and what they've done with a lot of these players that are on their roster right now and how they've kind of transitioned from that Ovechkin, Backstrom, Carlson into this younger core. The Hershey Bears, I believe, have won 2 of the last 3 Calder Trophy in the American Hockey League. So, like, all of their guys, or most of their guys that have been playing with their AHL team and having success in the playoffs, they're on their NHL roster now contributing to it. So, man, like, for guys like Kaskamaki, Stenberg, and Lindstein, for a Colin Ralph who's down there with them, a couple of other guys, and then if you put in Carbonneau and Jiricek, man, that's how you want to prepare for training camp of those guys getting a taste of playoff hockey and then going into the competition with the NHL roster.
Listen, I understand that this is going to very much be like a Homer sentiment, and anybody that's watching the podcast that doesn't know me or isn't a Blues fan might think that this is just Homeritis, that this is just me being a Blues honk.
I'm sorry you're suffering from that, by the way.
But guys, like, in all of the things that we're talking about here, what is going on with Springfield? What is going on with having these draft picks? What is going on with the big club and the great amount of fantastic young players that are already on the roster and under contract, like Holloway? I just feel like, and again, I really have to pace myself here, but I just feel like the organization is in a good spot. I'm not saying playoff next year. I'm not saying world beaters, but I'm saying like I feel like Blues fans should have a whole lot of optimism about what's to come. I'm not being too homeritis with that, am I?
I don't think so, but they've got to start getting guys that can translate to the NHL level. Like they've got to get more guys like Snuggerud that can score at the NHL level and jump right in and create that competition, because it does feel like there's a drop off in terms of like you've got Snuggerud and Thomas and Holloway, but then the secondary scoring is non-existent right now. And some of that's just development.
Yeah. And this is why on February 3rd, when they blew a 3-0 lead to so-and-so, I just try to step back and look at the big picture. And this isn't directed at any one person, you, Donny, but no, I'm joking.
Here it comes.
You, Donny.
But no, it's just a situation where you could kind of see it building. And one thing, I don't always often like to, I know you guys have to on your show, but talk about, cross-referencing the Cardinals and the Blues. But the Cardinals had years and years and years of sustained success. Like, you have to go back a long time to where they were the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? St. Louis, 25 straight years in the playoffs before that ended. And then now they went on another run. It's been a long time since the Blues were god-awful, right? And so you're just not used to it. So every year is playoffs, and who's coming in and who's the big splash and and sometimes you have to do this. This happens in other cities, whether it be baseball or hockey, and it's happening here. And that's why I always kept saying, in 3 years you look back at the roster and go, holy smokes, that guy was here. And when you look at what the Blues are building, I mean, could you imagine if they trade a player off the roster and the 11th pick and get Stenberg, and he's here next year, and Snuggerud's doing his thing, and all these players who are getting the experience in Springfield, a couple of them come up next year or 2 years from now. Alex is right. You can have all that, but you still need a couple top-notch guys like a Snuggerud, because you can't just build it with a bunch of average guys who come in. Now, listen, people might say, look at that 2009. Those guys weren't average. Those were 20 really, really, really good players. Those aren't average. So that's what the Blues are building right now, and it's just going to take some time. I know people hate hearing that.
Yes, they do.
Take some time.
I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that to just kind of help reset my expectations. I will not be going into 2026, 2027 the same way that I went into last year.
I don't believe you.
This guy has learned. Well, at least I'm not going to share it with you guys.
When they trade for that second overall pick and get Stenberg, we are getting the text that say, guys, this team can absolutely go on a run this year.
All right, so let's do this. Let's take our final break. Let's come back and let's just knock out a couple quick emails. Cool?
Boom.
Final segment on the way, Last Minute Blues podcast. All right, back here with a couple of your emails. And again, you can email us at lmbp@1057thepoint.com. I do want to say, listen, we try to get to as many emails as we can. I also, too, am definitely trying to pick emails from people that might not have ever had their email read on the show before. So I appreciate everybody participating. We get to as many as we can. But if we don't get to yours, it's nothing personal.
Yeah, we don't hate you.
No, not at all. We appreciate you listening.
We don't stop our mouths from running, so sometimes there's just not a whole lot of time on the podcast for emails.
All right, we got Noah messaging in. Love the pod. Question. We've stockpiled picks and prospects for a few years. People are offer sheet madness since Holloway Broberg. But here we go. Should a Robertson offer sheet be a real conversation? 7 years, $12 million, 4 firsts out the door. You get your superstar now and weaken a Central Division rival. Thanks, Noah.
Not a chance.
I wouldn't do that at all. There's not a chance I would give up 4 first-round picks to sign the guy for $12 million and potentially him not producing like he's been in Dallas.
You can make a trade and get it cheaper than that.
Yeah. Let me ask, you could trade 4 firsts and go get San Jose's second overall pick. Let me ask, who's Jason Robertson playing with on this team if you trade for him? Let's say you make that trade. Who's Robertson playing with?
Well, you're getting mad at me, and it wasn't even my question.
No, you look like Noah, so I'm getting mad at you. Because I ask this because we just had the conversation of you're not going to break up Holloway, Thomas, and Snuggerud.
So you're going to do that for a second line guy.
So you're going to pay Jason Robertson $12 million to play with Dalibor Dvorsky. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Like Jared said, I think I could take those 4 first-round picks and go trade for another guy that might be younger, or I could trade them to go get Ivar Stenberg.
All right. I mean, that does make sense.
But it's a fair question by Noah, because he's a player who could be available and he could help the Blues. It's just, that's a lot to give up.
Do you think Dallas is going to end up signing him to a long-term deal?
I think you have to. If you're Dallas, I think you have to. He scored? Did he score 50?
I thought he was 40 something. Yeah.
See, so you got high 40s, close to 50, played on their top line. Now, they've fallen short every single year, so I guess that's something they're going to have to consider. But, man, I don't know how you let that guy walk out the door and not replace it with somebody who can at least provide you some more offense.
Absolutely. All right, this one coming from, first of all, this is from Nathan Temple. And I just want to say, Nathan, are you my cousin, Nathan Temple? Because if you are, hey, man, how's it going? How's life going? I hope you're doing great. Please give a kiss to Aunt Kathy for me. If this isn't the same Nathan Temple, well,
then this is really weird.
Please disregard. A kiss. And don't do anything. But seriously, that is my cousin's name. I haven't talked to him in a long time, though. I don't think he's a Blues fan, so I would be very surprised if that was him.
And
but if it is,
if it's not, and he's got an Aunt Kathy, he's going to give your Aunt Kathy a kiss.
And wouldn't you have addressed it cousin Donny?
Yeah, I mean, I would
Donny's
think,
your cuz.
but I mean, I legitimately haven't seen Nathan in maybe 10 years, so maybe that's why. I don't know, but I would think yes, you would say, hey, cousin Don, whatever. Anyway, Nathan says, hello, Donny and gang. First time emailing, but long time listener. My question for you is, do you think we make any trades with at least one of the 3 first in the upcoming draft? I have my own thoughts and conversations about it, but I'd like to know your thoughts. And as always, let's go Blues. I mean, we really talked about this in the first segment of the podcast.
We did for the second one, but let me ask you, because I don't think Vancouver's not trading that 3rd overall pick. Do you think Toronto's going to have any appetite to trade that 1st overall pick?
No way.
No.
Oh, dude. They need that so bad in the world.
Do they need
just
that?
So they have something good to talk about.
Do they need that, or do they need more? And I'm not saying the Blues trade for it, but like I'm saying, do they need Gavin McKenna, or do they need somebody who can like come to their team and help right away? Because there's a consensus right now among scouts and people that cover the prospect of like McKenna might not be even the 1st overall pick.
I think they need him, want him, will pick him, and whether it takes 2 years or whatever, they're all for it.
It's the star that they can have.
Yeah, and even if the Blues offered all 3 first-round picks, those are lesser players. They'll go find that help elsewhere and bring the star in.
Cool. Hey, I'm just asking.
That's just my guess.
He's getting mad at me. Like, I'll tell him that the email.
Man, we're getting on each other. All right.
I just want to meet Aunt Kathy.
Give her a kiss.
She really one of the loveliest people that you're going to find. Just an absolute saint. All right. So last one here from Ben. Ben says, "Dear Donny, Alex, and Jeremy, with the news," but this is a great email. With the news that Tim Taylor and Ryan Miller are leaving to directly manage hockey ops in Springfield, it makes me wonder if this was done in the context of the league-wide shift in attention towards NCAA hockey. These moves coincide with our acquisition of Felix Trudeau from Sacred Heart, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive from Springfield, Mass. Boston is also not far at all, which makes me think of how Carbonneau almost ended up going there. The New England area is home to over a dozen college programs, and it surely will be a major hub for developing talent as the college scenes fill out. This positions Springfield to be a prime scouting location because we're a mid-market team. Player development has always been paramount. So this, in addition to the 19-year-old CHL to AHL thing, makes me so excited to see what's next from the pipeline. Keep killing it. That's Ben from Edwardsville. I'll tell you what, Ben, how about you keep killing these emails?
Yeah,
God dang it, that's a good email, man.
That was deep dive on that one.
And also, too, deep dive and pretty concise.
Very concise.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
That is a great email. And listen, I know the Blues were disappointed, frustrated, whatever, when the deal in San Antonio came to an end, but this has worked out great. Like this connection with Springfield, and not just being in Springfield on the East Coast next to all those schools, teams, Donny, but it's convenient, for these guys to get there and to be able to go scout and see all these guys. Now, he mentioned a couple players. Some of those, I think case by case, Carbonneau was kind of already thinking about Boston.
Yeah,
prior
it was
to the Blues
college
even
and juniors.
drafted him between college and juniors. But yeah, no, Ryan, who does a great job, Tim Taylor, great job. They can kind of skip around and go see guys. And I think that what they're building there and having total control over it. That's the biggest thing. Like so many of these American Hockey League affiliates, back when the Blues had the Chicago Wolves, the Wolves were in charge of the team. That's one thing. If you're not familiar with American League hockey and the affiliations with the NHL teams, is you don't always have this full say. Now it's Ryan Miller and Tim Taylor and now Alexander Steen who are deciding who they're bringing in, who they're shipping out, what trades they're making, bringing in Trudeau. Then it gets all the way down to talking to the coach and ice time, and now your coach is Steve Ott. Like that's why that, connection with having Steve Ott there is so good.
Real quick question. How long do they have that deal with Springfield? Because it seemed like for a while we were kind of flipping through.
They just re-upped, right?
Yeah. Let me double check it.
Multi-year deal.
I thought they re-upped with Thunderbirds to keep them for like 3 to 5 more years.
Yeah.
But while I'm looking at this, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ryan Miller and Tim Taylor, they're not completely away from the Blues and only on Thunderbirds.
No.
They're still part
doing
of
their Blues job.
Steen's staff that's going to be handling things.
It was just splitting duties, I believe, or splitting time between the two. While you're looking that up,
7-year deal they agreed to in 2024.
Oh, great.
So they're with them till the 2030-2031 season.
He is so quick with his fingers over there.
Boy, it's pretty amazing. Stanley Cup final, Carolina Hurricanes, Colorado Avalanche, yay, nay, yay.
Yeah.
They're boat racing.
Yeah, I was going to say that Minnesota one last night. It's like, oh, okay, this series, which is why, by the way, I hated the fact that they made Dallas and Minnesota play against each other. It should not be where those two teams had to beat the crap out of each other to play Colorado and then get boat raced because Minnesota was banged up. Dallas would be having the same thing happen to them while Colorado sat around and just healed up before the series. It's a joke that they had to do those, and I know they act like, well, we want the best to get people there for the first round. That's fine, but you want people to check out in the second and third round before the Stanley Cup final because that's what this is going to look like with Colorado.
I almost feel like, and not necessarily, but like I almost feel like the string of first round matchups were so much better. Like so much better. Like, listen to me. I love goals, but a 9-6 second round playoff game, I am not a fan of that in any way, shape, or form. Give me 1-8, give me 2-7, but I've heard Gary Bettman has doubled down on this playoff format.
Triple down.
Yeah, you gotta wait till Gary retires for that to change.
Which I also read that nobody thinks that he is going to retire, that he could take that.
That guy's going to be like Dwight Schrute from The Office, where he said, I'm just going to die in this office. That's what Bettman's going to die in the commissioner's office.
Not to sidetrack too much before we wind up, but seeing Gritty from the Philadelphia Flyers dressed up as Dwight Schrute might be one of my very favorite things that I have ever seen a mascot do in the history of professional sports.
That thing still creeps me out.
Oh, dude, it is. It's wonderful. He's the best mascot in sports.
Oh, yeah. Best meaning just gives you nightmares, absolutely.
Dude, he is hilarious. Everything about, and the way that their social media team handles him as well.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliantly done from that side.
Are you guys ever the guy in the room who doesn't watch the show and doesn't know the episode, and every time there's a reference, you just kind of watch your head go back and forth?
That's okay, because I do that with a lot of shows.
That's not okay. Not with The Office, just like the Rocky conversation where he hasn't seen Rockies.
Oh, I forgot.
JR needs to start. What do you got going on, JR? It's not like you got like 17 articles to do. Sit down and watch.
I probably got to do a fan survey or some prediction or something.
Well, it was before the last episode. We were talking about all of the irons in the fire, all the things that you were working on. And I was like, oh my God, like it gave me anxiety. Like it's not even my work, man. You got so much cooking.
You were right at the start when you said like there's no off season in hockey anymore, and JR's living proof of that.
Yeah.
He's got to just more stories and more stories.
I mean, from my perspective, that's a good thing, but I can...
Little Dylan Holloway coming at you tomorrow. We'll
boom.
Sit somewhere today and put that one together.
Fantastic. Well, boys, I guess we're going to take a break. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. We're going to have Chris Kerber with us. He's going to join us in the studio for a fun conversation. So we're going to go on an every other week schedule from here on out, unless news breaks, and then we'll obviously do a show for people. But Curbs is going to join us. We hope to have some really good guests along the way throughout the off season. And then Donny and I were just talking, maybe be able to put an extra episode out audio wise to answer more of your emails, because we can't obviously get to them all here. So if maybe try and crank one out on an audio side once every other week to just put some email answers out there.
Well, I think the thing that's very exciting is that the podcast continues to grow, and we really, and unfortunately, I just haven't had this top of mind to do this, but the Blues have been so rad to give us the folks that they have, and I think that that's going to continue, and we're trying to grow and do some other things as well. So, we really appreciate you listening. If you have hockey loving friends, please share the podcast with them. We just want to keep growing this thing as big as we can get it and have as much fun with it as we possibly can. And you guys are really helping us do that.
And the immortal words of Tony X, it's lit.
It's lit.
It's lit.
All right, boys. My phone just fell on the floor. Going to go ahead and wrap it up. It's the Last Minute Blues podcast. Thank you very much, as always, for listening and for watching. For Jeremy Rutherford, Alex Ferrario, I'm Donny Fandango. And as always, let's go Blues.
Thanks for tuning into the Last Minute Blues podcast on your home for Blues hockey, 101 ESPN.